Ahoy there, today on the Red Sea, what was the worst physical pain you have ever experienced? Tooth infection. I pulled some of my hair out. I could see someone killing themselves to end the pain. I was changing the brake pads on my car and the jack collapsed. The entire car crushed my arm and pinned me to the ground. It was in an apartment complex and there were people outside that heard me yelling for help. A guy and an older lady came and tried lifting the car enough for me to pull my crushed arm out. The skin was peeling off as I pulled with all my might once I felt some pressure release, and just before my arm was out, the car slipped out of the lady's hands and crushed my hand. At this point I'm trying to get her to lift for 2 more seconds so I can get my arm out, and after what felt like an eternity I finally got it out. I cannot describe what having your arm and hand crushed feels like, but it was the most intense pain I have ever felt. I kept going unconscious because of the pain until they hooked me up in the ambulance. Malarkey do. What was the damage to your arm and hand? My right 2 knuckles are gone, so I do not really have much movement in my pinky at all. My arm has nasty scars, but is back to normal other than that. I have a condition called proctalgia fugax. This is an uncontrollable spasming of the rectum and can last anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour and a half. It always happens in the middle of the night and feels like I have been probed by aliens without lube. They do not know what causes it, but I can go months without an attack and then 2 or 3 nights in a week. It is ducking brutal. I accidentally hammered my penis one time. I was hammering nails in a weird position, with each leg hanging of one side of the plank. The nail was being hammered about a 1/4 foot from my crotch. I sneezed mid-swing and the hammer hit hard. It did not leave any lasting injuries but it hurt like hell, and preening did too for a week. A few years ago, I was going to the dentist often since my teeth were damaged due to teeth grinding. After he fixed like 5 teeth has lico, we missed something here, and he started diving into my tooth without any anesthesia going shhhh. It does not hurt. It was the last time I went to see him. I had a dentist who was a bit stingy with the anesthesia, either not using enough or telling me oh, it's just a little one, no need to numb you. Nearly pulled with armrests off a chair on the last one. Kidney stones. I'm pretty susceptible to them as it runs in my family, so I have to drink a lot of water. I have gotten kidney stones 2 or 3 times within my life so far. I do not want any more, so I'm extra cautious. I asked my doctor if it was normal for the pain to be so extreme. He said he'd been told by multiple women that childbirth was preferable to kidney stones. Septic shock with systemic organ failure. Was later told it's the closest to dying you can feel without actually dying. 1000/10 do not recommend. What exactly was painful? Everything. The first pain I got was my kidneys feeling like they had been run over by a truck. After that I got pretty out of it mentally from my body starting to go into shock. But I remember terrible pain in my chest. Later learned this was from compressions and them forcing air into my lungs. And just everything feeling like it was getting crushed and cramping simultaneously. They would not give me pain meds for a very long time because they needed to know what was going on, and they did not want to give anything that was not life sustaining just in case something like say morphine further complicated my respiratory problems. At one point my mom was told I was too sick to go to the PICU and was kept in a code room for 18 hours and coded 7 times in that time frame. So much of it is blurry and I only remember a few distinct things, but the pain is definitely the main one. When I was 16 I was racing around my little course on my RM 250. I hit a jump wrong and crashed hard. One of the last things I remember was coming down headfirst on the end of my handlebars, destroying the visor and hitting my helmet hard enough it cracked it. While still sliding, the broken brake handle stabbed me in the side of my upper leg, just below waistline, and sliced it open all the way to just above my knee. Wind knocked out of me. I was out for I don't know how long. When this happened there were people there watching, other kids in the neighborhood. When I came to catching my breath, while simultaneously screaming from pain, there was no one there. They all just took off, tried to get up and move, tried to take a step and just fell. Bleeding everywhere, tissue hanging off. This is before cell phones, and was in my family's pasture, far from the house. In more pain than I've ever known. My only option was get my bike started. Tore my right leg open, so I couldn't kickstart it. I got it stood up and had to lay access it and get it started using my hand. I can't describe how painful all this was. I made it back home and collapsed. Doctor told me adrenaline is a hell of a thing since I was able to get myself home, and no one who was out there got help. They just left me there. When I was like 9, I was about to go over to a friend's house when suddenly my stomach started killing me out of nowhere. I had no idea what was going on. It had never happened before, and it was absolutely horrible. My mom took me to the doctor, and they had no idea what was wrong. Like 3 years later they finally figured out I had ulcerative colitis, which is a chronic disease that's not usually fatal, but it does cause bloody stools and major intestinal pain. Then when they gave me medicine for it, I kept getting really sick, and it was not working. Eventually I figured out it was the medicine that was making me sick, but no one believed me for like a week. They finally realized that I was part of a very small minority that was allergic to that specific medicine. Then I got something else that worked significantly better, and my arc has barely been an issue since. I was born missing one of my adult teeth, so I needed a false tooth to replace it. I had a surgery to insert a titanium rod into my skull, and once that had healed I would have a porcelain tooth attached to it. Well, I get to my dentist 3 months after the initial surgery, and she gets a special screwdriver and starts unscrewing the cap. Except she's going the wrong direction. She thinks it's stuck, so she pushes harder. I start to feel the flesh in my head pulling, then ripping, and the sharp pain of bone splintering. I scream and try to push this lady out of my mouth, and she looks at me with the most condescending face and says it does not hurt that bad, you need to calm down. And that's why I'm afraid of dentists. When I was in 6th grade I had a botched appendectomy. It had burst during surgery and they didn't get it all cleaned out. After getting home my lower abdomen was swollen and red for a while, so they took my back to the hospital. It had gotten very infected. They had to reopen the wound and leave it open for over a week so they could clean it and fill the wound with gauze like 6 times a day. Sitting up when I had to was bad, but removing the bandage to take out gauze, spraying the open wound with what I assume was antibiotics, and then stuffing new gauze into me was unreal. I had a sort of similar experience when I had appendicitis. It wasn't the surgery that was botched. It was the original primary care physician that ducked me over. It had ruptured already when I went to get it checked, and she told me that the crippling pain was just constipation. I was 17. So I believed her and told myself for 3 weeks that I was just being a baby about it with low pain tolerance. All my HS professors and friends didn't believe me either, except my science teacher who, when I finally fainted and was septic in the middle of the street on lunch, called the ambulance. I was in the hospital for 2 more weeks after that incident to recover because they could not do the surgery until I was more stable. I missed my high school graduation for it. RIP. The absolute worst 5 weeks of my life. To date the surgeon yelled at me for being too stoic. When I was 5, me and my family had just arrived at our vacation hotel. I was super psyched since the car ride was like 8 hours. I walked up to the pool door with flip-flops on and flung the door open right on my foot. It pulled my big toenail on my right foot clean off, and it bled for a super long time. Took the better part of a year for it to heal fully. One time not too long ago winter had just ended and my allergies were getting pretty bad, so I took some Benadryl and went on a boat ride with one of my friends. I had like 2 cans of soda and a big bottle of water, and after about 15 minutes on the boat I realized I had to pee, but I discovered that when I take Benadryl I cannot pee. Urinary tract I think. And we were in the middle of nowhere on a boat, and we still had about 4 hours to go. After a while it got super ducking bad, and it was excruciating pain, and we tried to get back, but it took a while, and I'm very surprised my bladder did not leak or I did not get a UT. After I got home it hurt so bad to pee I had to sit on the toilet for about 30 minutes and do short spurts. After that I decided to never get into a situation like that ever again. A splinter under my thumbnail about 3/4 of the way down. There is a reason that sticking things under people's nails is a legitimate torture method. When I was like 17 I got up one morning really thirsty and went to the kitchen. Filled up a big glass of cold water and started chugging. Chug -1 immediately I felt something wrong. I felt it go all the way down my throat and into my stomach like a rock. My stomach felt like it was 10 sizes too small, and that one gulp filled it up like 70%. But the problem was gulps #2 and #3 were already activated, and I couldn't stop myself in time. Gulp #2 felt like it stretched my stomach to 120%, and gulp #3 actually felt like my stomach pouch tore open. I fell to my knees and just stayed for like 3 minutes analyzing the interior of my body to see if I could feel stomach acid spilling into my body cavity. Thankfully I was fine. To this day, I don't do that anymore. I take a sip, and if everything is okay, then I proceed drinking. I think it's due to the cold shocking your stomach and it clenches to avoid injury. I remember hearing a while back, years So it's definitely very fuzzy that it's a survival instinct, and also why you're supposed to drink room temperature water. Nerve pain in my jaw. I have a damaged branch of my trigeminal nerve that initially took about 4 months to diagnose. I cannot begin to describe the horror of nerve pain. I have been awake at 2 AM wondering if it is possible to die from pain. It's not possible according to my pain specialist. Really lucky to have great doctors. A couple weeks ago I had an ear infection. Basically my head felt like it was imploding constantly and sometimes pain meds did not help. When I was in 2nd grade I was jumping on my trampoline with my older brother and he tripped me while I was really high in the air and I was near the edge when he tripped me and I fell off and landed on my arm. I dislocated my arm and shattered one of my bones in the arm and cracked the other. I now have nerve damage in my arm. I have given birth to 3 kids and I still think the last toothache I had was worse than that. Poured a good cup or so of fresh off the boil water on my hand by accident and knew it was gonna be bad when it felt cold instead of hot. Got stung by a Portuguese man-o-war when I was 13. 30 now. I have since then torn ligaments, broken bones, been badly cut, and had a couple of decent burns. Nothing will ever compare to that searing pain. It was like sitting on a grill for a few hours. It was my sophomore year in wrestling practice that this happened. I was a 170 pounds and I was practicing with the 195 at the time since it was early in the SZN and not many people showed up because they did not have to. I'm not sure how to describe this to non-wrestlers, but he went for a far side cradle on me and I was resisting to try and help him nail the cradle better, and this man with all his might bent my head towards my tailbone, effective inverting my spine into a C shape and tensing all my back muscles. I have broken my right arm and 2 ribs, but that's still the most pain I have ever felt. I could barely walk straight after that. I have never experienced that, but I have broken my ribs. There were days where I'd just lay on the floor in the bathroom and cough blood into the toilet. And if that pain in your back was worse, I'm sorry you had to experience that. I did a hot wing challenge at a restaurant. I needed to eat 13 wings and only got through 4 before vomiting all over the floor. For the next 30 minutes it was just unrelenting, escalating pain inside my mouth. I made a big scene inside that restaurant. Unfortunately it is the end of the video, but do not worry, there are many more coming. Like and subscribe for more videos from the Red Sea. Thanks for watching.